Hey, Intro to Multimedia students, how you doing? We've been working all week on our character design project, and pretty soon you guys are going to be wrapping that up. But once you have a character, we need him to live somewhere. We've got to have an environment for him to run around in. So our next project is going to be creating the world in which your character exists. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up playing Super Mario Brothers, and I love the old video game graphics. And looking at some of these graphics from some of these Super Mario Brothers levels, I thought, wow, I could really make these pretty easily in Adobe Illustrator and then recolor them and redesign them to match my own character. So what we're going to do is I'm going to jump over into Adobe Illustrator in a minute, and I'm going to start creating some of the building blocks that you can make to build your character's world for our character design project. So I'm going to be needing to create some things like mountains and clouds and sky, probably some brick textures, maybe some secret boxes for them to explore. And of course, every good video game, you have to have something that they're collecting. So in Mario Brothers, they collected little gold coins. Maybe I can think of something that my own character could design. All right, so I'm going to leave this open so I can jump back to it, but let's go to Illustrator. And I'm going to just start with a blank piece of paper, letter size. I'm doing this for print. I'm going to use letter size paper. I'm going to make it landscape orientation so I have a nice long rectangle to work off of here. And I'm just going to put my name and let's call this level design. Okay. Create, and that's going to open up our large document. So I've got my tools laid out here with, let me move my video window here. I've got my properties up because I'm definitely going to need to adjust things like stroke and fill. I've got my toolbars, and I've also got my swatches tab open so that I can quickly grab some colors out of here. Now, if you don't see your swatches, you're going to go up to Window and scroll all the way down and select the Swatches tab so that you can pull up your stock colors. And if you want to use different colors for this, down here at the bottom of the swatches, you've got a libraries menu where you can open up some pre-filled swatches. So maybe I'll just play around with a little bit. I'm going to go to the foods, and let's go to the sweets category. And that's going to open up a bunch of colors that are based off of sweet treats. Okay, so let me pop that in right there. Now I've got my sweets and my swatches, and I can switch back and forth between the two. All right, so when designing an environment for your character, you've got to think in terms of background, middle ground, and foreground. Background are the objects that are farthest away, middle ground are things that are closer to us, and then foreground is where most of the action takes place. It's the stuff that's right in front of us. So first thing I'm going to do is let me open up my layers here, and I'm going to create 3 layers. Let's call this the background. Click make a new layer. We'll call this middle ground. And we'll make one more called the foreground. Okay. And I want to keep my artwork on separate layers so that if I decide to change colors or I want to make one fade more than another, they're already on a separate layer and I can do that later on. Okay. So let's go to the background layer, and I'm going to start off with my sky. I'll take a rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that fills my whole paper here. And let's fill that rectangle with a nice light blue. I'm going to use this kind of pastel blue right here, which looks pretty good. Okay, then in the far distance of my design, I think I want to have some mountains that are back there. So I'm going to take, for my mountains, I could do this with a rectangle, or I think I'll use a rounded rectangle here. I'm going to draw a big rounded rectangle like this. And remember that when you draw a rounded rectangle, it has these little handles in it. If I grab onto these handles and pull, I can round off their corners. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I can then rotate this 45 degrees. And these are going to be my mountains way in the distance. I'm just going to set them down here at the bottom, maybe enlarge a little bit. And mountains are going to need to be a different color. Let's pick, I'll go back to my regular swatches. Let's pick like some gray mountains that are way off in the distance here. No outline, just a gray fill. Okay. And I'm going to copy these a couple times. So remember that there's a couple different ways that you can copy in Illustrator. You can click the object and do Control-C, Control-V, and that makes a copy. And I'll push that copy maybe right here. Okay. Or the easier way is if you've got your black selection arrow selected and you hold down Alt on your keyboard, do you notice how your arrow turns into a black and white arrow? And now if I drag, it automatically makes a copy. Okay, so that's a real quick trick for making fast copies of objects that you've got. Cool, so I've got 3 big mountains way off in the distance. I think I want this one to be farther away. So I'm going to open up its color. And let's go a little bit lighter for that one. And then maybe this one will go a little bit, this one here will go lighter as well. So now I've got some different levels of mountains. Cool. The other thing that would be way off in the distance here would probably be some clouds in the sky. And clouds are really fun to make in Illustrator. You're going to just switch over to your ellipse tool. And I'm going to make a circle here and fill it with white. And then I'm going to use that copy trick. By holding down Alt and just dragging on that circle, I can make a whole bunch of small copies of this that when you double them all up like this, you get a cloud shape. Okay, so I got a nice little cloud there. Let me group these. I'm going to drag over them. I don't want the sky included, so I'm going to press Shift and click on the sky. And now these are selected. And if I right click, I can make a group. Okay, so now I have a group of cloud and I can double these up. I can make copies of them. If I want bigger clouds or if I want a little tiny one, I can shrink it down and I can build out clouds however I want. Okay, nice. Now, if you want to get real fancy, you can even add some other shapes to this. I'm going to use a tool called the blob brush. And the blob brush is located right under the paintbrush tool. If you hold down on it, you'll see the blob brush. And I'm going to pick a slightly lighter blue color here. So there's white. I'm going to grab just something that's got a little bit of blue to it. And the blob brush does what it says. It draws blobs of color. So on my keyboard, if I select the letter right next to the letter P on my keyboard, there's 2 brackets. And one bracket will make your brush bigger. And what I'm going to do is just kind of draw in the little bumpy reflection part of the bottom of this cloud right there. And then I'm going to do it again over on this one. You see the blob brush is really blobby, and it's going to create that little shadow on the bottom of the cloud. Cool. Let's group that together. Right click and group. Let's take this piece and all of these copies and right click and group. And now I've got a pretty awesome background there. Okay, so let's go back to our layers. We're going to lock our background layer since I'm pretty much done with that. And now let's go to work on the middle ground. Okay, so in the middle ground, I'm going to have some ground that my characters are running on. And if I look back at those Mario games, you know, they always had like bricks or rock or grassy surfaces, depending on what the level was. I'm going to just start with some basic brick here. So let's go over to Illustrator again. I've locked my background. I'm on my middle ground now. And here, I'm going to build some bricks. So let's zoom in. I've got my rectangle tool here. I'm going to make one brick just like that. And let's fill it with gray. And let's give it a black outline. Okay, maybe 2-point outline like that. All right, now I'm going to use that copying trick because we're going to be using that a lot on this project. I'm going to do Alt and just drag a copy straight over to the side till it lines up. And now I've got 2 bricks. Okay. Now, once I've dragged that, if I press Control D on my keyboard, it's going to duplicate what I just did. Watch this. Control D. It adds another brick at the same distance. Okay. Now I'm going to grab these 2 and Alt drag them down to make my second line of bricks. And then I'm going to grab these 3 and Alt drag to make my third line of bricks. And I think one of the easiest ways when you're making a pattern like this is if I delete this one and I delete this one, you see I've got a zigzag there. Let's drag and select them. make them a group. Okay. Now I can take this little pattern that I've made, and if I alt drag it, now I've got a little bit more. And remember that trick? Control D. I've just replicated my pattern all the way across the bottom of the screen. And so I'm just going to grab this whole pattern, alt drag a copy up, and there is the ground for my level. Okay, let's move this over. Just want to fill in some of these empty spots on both ends. Okay, cool, cool. All right. Now we're ready to move on to some obstacles, right? Because every good characters game has to have some obstacles that they have to get over. So one of the classic ones that we saw from like the Mario Brothers games was the pipe, and we could even have some trees in there or some different obstacles that he has to jump over. I think I'm going to start with the pipe since it's the easy one. So if I look at that shape, you know, pretty easy. It's just a rectangle with a rounded rectangle on top of it. So let's try to make one of those. I'm going to take my rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a tall, narrow rectangle right like that. And I want to, it looks pretty flat right now, so I want to give it some shading. So what I'm going to do is some shortcuts here. Control C to copy. Control F is going to paste that copy right on top of the last one. So when I grab it from the sides and I pull this in, you see that all it did was make a copy of that shape on top of the original one. Now on this copy, let's make it a slightly lighter gray, and let's get rid of its stroke. So we'll say no stroke, and now it's got a little bit of a reflection on it. And then I'm going to alt drag this over to here so that this side of the pipe is shaded. So I'll make it a little bit wider, and let's make it just the next shade darker. And now I've got this reflection, right? Like a reflection on one side and a shadow on the other. Let's make that a little bit darker, maybe something like that. Cool, cool. On top of that, let's put the pipe cap. So I'm going to come over to my rounded rectangle tool now. I'm going to create a rectangle across the top. And I want this one to be the same color as the pipe. So let's go grab that color. Let's give it a stroke in black and make that stroke a little bit thicker. I think that'll help this stand out more. And I'll put this pipe cap right over the top of the other one so it hides those weird edges on my reflections. Pew, pew, pew. Cool. Now I got my pipe. And if I wanted to, I could just copy these and put some shading. Actually, let's do that. I'll take these two. I'm going to drag their copy up. And then I'm just going to grab it from this handle and shrink it down so that it fits. Zoom in here. So that it fits on the pipe cap. Okay? Because the pipe cap should probably have a reflection too. Awesome. All right. So we've got some things in our middle ground here. Now, of course, our character would be collecting some objects. We got to give him some things to bonk and punch and destroy and grab to collect for points. So let's make some prize boxes. I'm going to take my rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a perfect square by holding down Shift to get a little perfect square there. And let's give this an outline. I'll knock up its color a little bit. And I want these boxes, I want them to stand out. So let's pick a bright color for this. Maybe these little gift boxes are pink or red with a black outline. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. And on my prize box, maybe we put a question mark. So I'm going to take my text tool. I'm just going to click anywhere right there and make a question mark. Let's find a better font. I'll come over here to my character menu. And let's pick a nice bold one. That's a good one right there. I'm going to drag this over and enlarge it so that it really fills up that box. Maybe pick a brighter color too. Let's go with yellow. Question box. I think I want it to have some little rivets in the corner as well. So I'm going to take my ellipse tool. I'm going to draw a little like bolt in the corner of this. Let's make it black. And I'll zoom in. There we go. And I'm just going to drag some copies. I'm going to drag one copy down here to the bottom. Then I'm going to grab both of these and drag copies over to the other side. I've got bolts in every corner. Nice. I got a prize box. I'll go ahead and group this all by dragging around it. Right click, group. Sweet. I've got some boxes that my character is going to attack. All right, last thing, what is he going to collect? Well, that's going to be up to you. You guys are going to have to decide what it is your character is collecting for points in your game. Maybe it's food, maybe it's coins, maybe it's diamonds, maybe there's lucky objects he's got to collect, and draw them into your setting as well. Now, you'll notice I still have one more level to go, and that's the foreground. So I'm going to lock up my middle ground layer. So on my layers palette, I've got one more level to go, and that's my foreground. Now this is where we're going to keep all the things that are floating in front of the screen, like his health meter and his PowerPoints and the totals of things he's collected. So up on top here, I could make all kinds of different objects. Let's go see what we could include. So you remember in the games, they might have a timer. They might have like their power level, maybe how many lives you have left in the game. There might be some power-up information that we want to include in there. So this is the type of thing that I would put in my foreground. So I'm going to go open up my character now. Let me open up my character design. There's my little monster. And I'm going to go ahead and select him, copy him, go back to my level design, and paste him in just like that. I can even shrink him down so that he's in his environment. Awesome. And then let's go into this group. I'm going to copy his little head here. Actually, let me go get it from the front view. Let's go copy his head, and I'll bring that over into my game. And I'm going to paste it up here in the corner as the little indicator that shows how many lives he has left. Okay, so we'll put this. Let's take our text tool, and I'll click, and I'm going to put times 3. We'll make this bigger. We'll just throw that right there. Okay, cool. For my objects, I didn't put what he's collected yet, but maybe I can put a little timer in the top corner. So we'll go here, and we'll put time. How about 1 minute, 30 seconds. And I'm going to pick my bright color here, fill it up, have this kind of floating in the top. Cool. I could add sound effects. I could put little explosion effects in here, maybe some flames coming out that he's got to dodge around. These are all different things that I might add to my foreground level for my character. Okay, I hope you guys have fun with this. We're going to be designing the levels and environments for your character, and we're going to be doing 2. An easy level and an advanced level. So start brainstorming, start sketching, and putting your ideas on paper. And then when we get into Illustrator, you'll have lots that you can draw and put together for this project. All right, guys, let's have fun.